woman, Paulina Luna. Thank you guys, both of you, for being on the program for such an important day, really to see, the build-up, what's going to happen tomorrow, the foreshadowing, the take on it from, D.C., the swamp, where we sent Congresswoman Paulina Luna to go clean that swamp up. She's doing a good job. I'm going to begin with you, John, just to get your reaction to all of this. What can you tell us about your reporting, which has been phenomenal, and the president's legal strategy moving forward? Okay, we're having a problem with John's audio. So let me switch over to Paulina. Congresswoman, so let's talk about this. What threat does all this pose to the justice system, and how will it affect your work on the House Oversight Committee?
It's incredibly important right now. If you look at the amount of people that are being silent on this, and they should be outwardly vocal in condemning this, I think it is a blatant show that there is a double standard that exists within the justice system, and that the justice system has indeed not only been compromised, but weaponized against conservatives. In the work that we're doing in House Oversight, we have Chairman Comer, and then also Jim Jordan is also on that committee. And hopefully we will get a joint hearing together to see not only was there coordination with the DOJ and this district attorney, but also to what hand does this administration have in this whole thing?
Very good point. And everyone wants to know that, because you know what? Alvin Bragg isn't above the law. Okay, so he needs to answer the questions, and Congress has the power of subpoena, which they can and will use. I want to go back to John Solomon, because I read lips, and I think what you said was amazing. But I want our, listeners and viewers to be able to hear it as well. So take it away.
Well, listen, we have to see the indictment. When we see that, we'll know exactly what Alvin Bragg's legal theory is. But since this case has been leaked to smithereens already, we generally know what's going on here. He's going to try to upgrade a misdemeanor whose statute of limitations expired 5 years ago and try to make it a felony. Now, this is the same prosecutor that on a daily basis takes felonies committed by violent criminals and downgrades them to misdemeanors. So that contrast is going to be both politically important to the American public, but legally important. The statute of limitations here is a real problem for them. Another problem is the credibility of witnesses like Michael Cohen, upon which much of this case will rest. And then there's a third part of this that a lot of lawyers say hasn't really been thought of yet. In order to link all this together, you got to make an argument that the president was involved in some form of fraud. That's not possible here. Fraud, under the definition of the United States Supreme Court and of local New York court, it must involve trying to steal someone's property or money. President Trump is not accused of any of that. I think that's going to be one of the killers when it gets to the appellate court.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And this is why it's going to be very fascinating. You bring up a great point, John, and people at home just to see. It's like the indictment is sealed. So nobody knows, not the president, not anyone, but there's some different things, coming from leaks, DA's office or law enforcement, et cetera, giving some detail and just, what the subject matter essentially was of the grand jury proceedings. So that's why. And then people were also curious, John, just to ask you this really quick, because they're saying it's 30 plus counts on there, making it sound like he had 30 different instances of, misdeeds or criminal activity, et cetera. But that's not the case.
Yeah, a lot of times, again, we don't know what the number of counts are, but if it were to be 30, it could very well be every time a payment was made to Michael Cohen as part of the alleged reimbursement, that could get charged in New York. It's often done in New York when they want to pile on. Each transaction could be considered a charge, so we'll have to watch and see if there's a pile-on phenomenon here.
Absolutely. This will be fascinating to see tomorrow. Anyway, so Congresswoman, so obviously, this has been essentially Donald Trump's, life ever since he first decided to run. Because before that, he didn't have these problems, right? But as soon as he started to run, then they wanted to impeach him on the first day after he was elected. There were Washington Post reports about that they were looking into impeachment. They spied on him during the election over at Trump Tower in 2016. We had two ridiculous witch hunts, impeachment 1, impeachment 2, Mueller investigation, Russia, Ukraine. Then we had, the raid at Mar-a-Lago. I mean, it's never ending. And now it's endless investigations. And Alvin Bragg is literally letting lawlessness run loose across New York. reducing felonies to misdemeanors, rampant crime, no quality of life, children, parents, families worried to take the subway, to walk to work, to be out in their communities, people fleeing New York, and he's single-handedly focused on just persecuting the former president of the United States.
I mean, you're exactly right. It's very upsetting, especially being that New York used to be the pride and glory of this country, and it's really gone to hell in the handbasket over the last couple of decades, I think, with this terrible left-leaning legislation. But what's even scarier is, from this perspective, they're doing everything, in my opinion, that they can to try to prevent him from winning the White House in 2024. And what this has really done, Kimberly, and I'm seeing it not just in Washington, but even here among my constituents, whether they are Democrats, whether they're independents, people are starting to see now that this is a complete propaganda machine and a constant lie out of the Democrat Party. So I'm hoping that not only does consolidation of the base happen around President Trump to be our nominee for 2024, but I also hope that people continue to see that if we have people in office, if we have these people in positions of power that are this corrupt and we don't do anything about it, we will lose this country. And I don't say that just because I'm in office. I don't say that because, I'm there firsthand on the front lines, but I'm saying that because I genuinely am in fear with what's happening economically, what's happening with our foreign policy. And then obviously, this DA is looking into these crazy allegations and a cooked up charge against President Trump. But let's not forget, Oversight has proof that the Biden family is receiving wire transfers from the CCP. Why is the media not discussing that? Why is this all of a sudden a topic that we're not supposed to be addressing on behalf of the American people? And I am very concerned about it.
Yeah, no, you're right. But, listen, elections have consequences, and, we do have a majority now, in the House. And I've seen a pretty, I would say, impressive, rapid move to be able to, go after these cases, go after Hunter Biden, go after the fact that the Biden family is compromised by China. This is not speculation. There's actual evidence to do this. When people say to me, the good folks out there, well, Kimberly, what's going to happen with this? Is there going to be accountability? We've got great people in Congress like yourself and MTG and Gates and Boebert, and Stefanik's been great. She's been on the program as well. What's going to happen? What can we get for some final, accountability or satisfaction out of this, that there still is law and order, that there still is justice in this country, that law isn't dead?
I think the number one thing right now that we're doing, and what I have actually been successful at, is the fact-finding mission on behalf of the American people. Once we get those facts out there, then we can pursue the legal aspect. But, for so long, the media has really gone to bat and cover up for a lot of this corruption that we're seeing. And then also, too, once we have some of this legislation in place, which is, as you saw on one of the oversight hearings that we were on with Twitter, we've known for so long that big tech has been in cahoots with the DNC, with some of these fact checkers, and honestly, parts of our federal government to suppress information from the American people. So we have to write that legislation. And once we do take back the White House, we can basically get that passed and really work hard at preventing this from happening in the future. It is scary, though, Kimberly, from some of the stuff that we see, and then the, I think, public pressure campaign that the left tries to run against us so that we can't do our jobs. It's something that I've never seen before.
It's unbelievable. It's just, they're like co-conspirators. It's a concerted effort, to try to end transparency in this country, end the rule of law, and just put in a whole politicized, weaponized process against whoever, you don't agree with their viewpoints. Because we see what they've done with DOJ, with FBI. That has to be investigated as well. I know you guys are dealing with, whistleblowers and stuff for the FBI. I've interviewed several on this program. The American people want the answers. They're tired of this runaround because it's just gotten worse, especially since Trump's gotten out of office. We see what's happening here. And if you have a DA like that is going to bring cases like this against, a former president, which again is unprecedented. I'm not saying somebody is, above the law. I'm saying don't bend and, shapeshift the law just so that you can try to destroy a human being who's innocent because you don't like their politics and you're scared as hell to have them get back in office. Right, John? I mean, you also have, John, a story about House Republicans that I want to get to as well, that they're looking to hold politicized persecutors accountable. Tell me about this. I love the accountability aspect.
It is. I think some of the Republicans realize that once all the facts are out there, like the Congresswoman just said, there needs to be some consequences. We went through the whole Russia collusion thing. We saw all the things that went wrong there. No one really paid a dear price for that. So what Congressman Austin Scott says is being discussed behind the scenes, he's a member of the House Intelligence Committee, very influential voice in Congress, is that they're going to turn their tables. They're going to take an issue that Democrats tried to use against cops after the George Floyd protests in 2020 and eliminate the qualified immunity that prosecutors have from civil litigation. So if you're a prosecutor like Alvin Bragg and you bring a blatant political case that isn't rooted in the fact and it's found out that you did that, you can be sued by the defendant. If you are a prosecutor like Alvin Bragg and you let someone out and they go out and commit another crime when the law said you should have kept them behind bars, you'll be able to sue them. That will give a lot of local prosecutors pause that they don't have, particularly these Soros prosecutors who are carrying out an agenda that is extra legal beyond the current laws on the books in their own communities.
It's unbelievable. You think that we wouldn't have to do this in this country because we were always the shining example of the most incredible justice system and court system for law and order and for fairness, in the world. And now this whole thing is just, it's whatever they can do to try to get, President Trump. So Congresswoman Paulina Luna, follow up on the whole point that it isn't the first time we've seen, obviously, evidence of a politicized justice system. How culpable do you think, this is what the folks want to know at home, is the Biden White House in all of this? Because it seems like they've been driving this shift towards, lawlessness.
I think that they're extremely responsible. I mean, everything from these crazy investigations, these accusations, people coming forward, everything from that and what's happening with President Trump to what's happening right now with the January 6th defendants. I mean, I went with House Oversight to check on the status of some of these individuals. KG, I know that you were a prosecutor.
Yeah.
Some of these people have been in jail since January 6th, haven't even been given access to bail hearings. I mean,
and some in solitary confinement.
Yes.
Like Hannibal Lecter. That's how they're treating these people. It's insane.
It's insane. Another individual had a guard threaten to rape him, and the guard is still employed and overseeing the entire facility that they're at. So there's an incredible problem that we have in this country. And I hate to say it, but, I talk to people, I'm talking to ambassadors from other countries right now, and they're looking at us and they're looking to see what's happening, and they're floored. They're horrified, and rightfully so.
Yeah. John?
Yeah, I hear the same thing. World leaders look in and I interview them. They say, what's happened to your country? You were the shining beacon. Now you look like a banana Republican. Other countries look like they've stepped into the voice of reason and democracy and constitutional republic. This is such a critical moment in our history. Just take the last 72 hours. We're going to see President Trump be arraigned tomorrow on charges a lot of people think are incredibly suspect and certainly outside the statute of limitations. Over the weekend, we had a blogger convicted of putting a meme out, actually making a humorous meme. And meanwhile, 51 national security experts who told us falsely told us the Hunter Biden laptop, they walked away unscathed. They haven't been prosecuted. Those are the sort of contrasts that world leaders look at and say, hey, that's not the America we've been used to the last 246 plus years.
No, it's so crazy. But I mean, yeah, can you imagine that? So someone essentially doing the equivalent of like a political cartoon, a meme. Okay, my fiance calls himself like the general, the meme war. I don't know, some name. It's crazy, but he loves it, makes him happy. So I go, okay. But these are supposed to be funny and it's political satire and it's supposed to spark conversation. But now you have some guy going to jail for what 10 years? Like, how is this not going to get thrown out? By the way.
I mean, they also, too, have right now I call it the Digital Patriot Act, but it's the Senate's version of the TikTok ban, which, mind you, I sponsored a separate TikTok ban in-house. But, I mean, everything that they're using this because of the fact that, one, memes are extremely effective. We win on the arguments. Humor is a big aspect of that. But if they can suppress us every step of the way, they're going to. So we have a massive fight, especially with big tech, which is, I think, worthy of a whole nother topic in itself and segment.
and exactly. And you know why? Because you know how there's always like that sort of adage, but it's an adage because it's true. The left can't meme. Well, apparently, because they can't meme, they want to take the memes away, from the right, and that's what's happening here. But it's the same thing, over and over again. Or where we saw the QAnon shaman who was actually escorted in. That guy's been in jail forever, but fine. And they had that evidence, which was exculpatory. That wasn't put out there. The guy goes to jail for years and years, gets out early to go to a halfway house because Tucker Carlson gets that information, those videos, puts it out there. I mean, how sickening is that? To know that somebody's like innocent was actually led in and walked in with the Capitol Police, and then you put that person in jail. Like, hold on, Kim Jong-un wants his cred back. He's like, what are you guys doing in the U.S.? I'm supposed to be the guy that feeds people to the sharks that are, oppose my political viewpoints and whatever. But no, now we're the people doing that. It's become like a psychotic dictatorship in the United States where it's just the left and the Democrats. They'll do whatever it takes. It's like off with your head, throw them to the sharks, put them in jail, hide the evidence, resurrect old cases that, by the way, Southern District of New York declined to proceed forward on because there's no evidence, and so did the FEC. So this case has no legs. That's the thing. But if they're willing to convict somebody for doing a meme, like what is next? That's the problem, John, isn't it?
I over the weekend, I talked to someone who escaped communism from the Soviet Union, came to the United States, and they said Lenin and Stalin are turning in their graves saying, why didn't we think of these things that are currently being used in America? I think people who came from other countries, who escaped communism or Castro or the tyranny of Venezuela or other countries, they're looking at America saying, we didn't come here to have this happen in the country. They're going to be some of the most powerful witnesses, I think, over the next 6 weeks to what's wrong with our judicial system and why we need to fix it right now.
You're absolutely right, because now they're going to have to leave the United States to escape political persecution and communism. Wait, what? Yeah. I mean, that's the state of the affair. So bottom line, I'll get last comments from both of you. John, what do you see tomorrow? How do you think this turns out? People are worried about is a protest or this, that, or anything else going on. What do you think?
I think the Trump protesters will be peaceful and just express themselves. I think it'll be a circus because that's what Alvin Bragg wants it to be, is a circus tomorrow. And then the real work begins. You get the indictment and then it goes to the court system. And a lot of these big legal issues that you pointed out at the top of the show, they start to get adjudicated. My guess is this doesn't survive a legal test as it moves up the chain in the court system. Yeah,
it should be dismissed, by a judge, quite frankly, if the evidence isn't there, with a motion to dismiss for insufficiency of the evidence. So I'm very curious to get my hands on that indictment tomorrow, as is everybody else, and really pour through it. But he has excellent legal counsel, I know. And so, the truth will prevail. And President Trump, as we all know very well, he is just getting stronger from this and really is going to fight back. And that's the kind of leader you need, especially with everything going on, as you've pointed out, Congresswoman, in the world arena with national security and foreign policy. We're at a really perilous time in this country. And you know that, too, based on your service to this country. So, hopefully tomorrow we want everything to be peaceful. People have a right to assemble. People have a right to express their opinions and support, especially against the lawlessness that's, occurring here in this very situation and, in fact, on the streets of New York. But I want to thank you both for being here on the program today. It's always a pleasure, and we look forward to having you back many more times.